Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Rapid Recon's A Look Under the Hood of Reconditioning Through Fixed Operations. We've got quite an audience this morning. In fact, this is going to be record attendance for us for this webinar. Seeing a lot of familiar names out there. Jay Spoonseller from Mile One, thank you for joining us. People from the Penske Group, looks like Larry Miller. Wow, so thanks everybody for jumping in. This webinar is a little different than webinars that we've done in the past, simply because the attendee, the invitees, were all current Rapid Recon customers. And so, rather than just looking at some of the industry's best practices, we're actually going to tie those into how they're used with Rapid Recon. Before we jump in, I put together a little poll, and what I'd like to find out is how many of you are actually using Rapid Recon in your stores now, and how many of you are actively using it versus maybe somebody else in the store using it. So if you would go ahead and answer that question for us, that'd be great. And then we'll jump into some informal introductions and get started. We know your time is valuable, by the way. We'll keep this under 28 minutes. This is a one part of a series of webinars. So we're going to do another one next week, where we'll do a continuation of some more best practices in fixed, but we're going to bring some stuff in on variable as well next week. So hopefully you can jump in and join us for that. If not to worry, we are going to record this webinar and we'll get it out to you. We'll also record the one next week and get it out to you as well. So looks like pretty high numbers coming in. 83%, 82% of you so far use it personally and regularly, and only 8% of you actually are answering no. So we'll leave that poll open here for probably another 30 seconds, and then we'll shut that down and get started. Still a pretty high number of active users here. That's excellent. Great news. All right, we'll go ahead and get that shut down, and we'll close that poll. All right, well, we'll jump in. But let me introduce Anthony Martinez. He's my colleague here, and he's going to give you a short introduction on his background.
Good morning. Served 8 years in the Army under combat arms, and after that got into home construction and quality control for manufacturing. So in that experience, I was able to get certified in Six Sigma and Lean with problem solving Kaizen certifications as well. So was recruited to help take over the Greenway Auto Group Reconditioning Center, which served 3 stores and a lot of the inventory in the Central Florida area, and was exposed to the reconditioning process and was fortunate enough to use Rapid Recon as a tool. We're probably 8 to 10 days prior to Rapid Recon, and using Rapid Recon and some other tools, we were able to successfully get it under 3 days. And that's when I came to work for Rapid Recon.
Great, thank you. My name's Anthony Greenhalgh. I've been in the industry now 28 years. I literally started at the ripe old age of 16 years old, working in the parts department, shipping parts, and worked my way up, through the ranks. Most recently, before I actually got out of the store, I ran a collision center for a Metro Chevy dealer. And I actually found Rapid Recon because we internalized our cosmetic reconditioning. And we're going to do a little spin up on that in today's best practices. And we're going to look at some things that you could possibly do with your detailers and your technicians, even if you don't own a body shop. So hopefully it can bring some years of experience to the table here. Well, let's go ahead and jump in. We'll start off with communication, transparency, and accountability. Anthony's going to take this slide. He's got some good talking points here. So Anthony, if you want to jump in, let's start talking about some best practices.
So one of the best practices that we started seeing pretty recently in the last couple of years, to add accountability to your staff and help with dispatching, dealerships have been naming the steps after their people. For example, detail Bobby, service advisor Johnny, technician Sally. And that way, in addition to knowing where the car is, you actually know who's got the car. They're getting an alert specified to them, so they know I'm got work ready for me. I'm just going to go grab the RO and go grab the keys, and you can actually see their production value. So at the end of the month, if you're doing a performance review, or if you're just trying to see which one of your technicians, service advisors, detailers, etc., are performing to your standards, you can now see how long are the vehicles in their name step, how long is it taking for it to get to the next one, how many repeats are there, which could indicate a quality control. So it's really helpful to dispatch because you can actually see, well, I'm not going to give Sally another car because she's got two, Johnny's got one, he's next in the chute to get a vehicle. So it's actually serving a couple purposes that way. Now, you can also do that with vendors, and we always have invited vendors to join in your workflow because it makes it that much easier for that communication and notification. Approval steps. You definitely want to have an approval step. The whole point of Rapid Recon is to cross between departments and improve that communication and eliminate that non-value added time of waiting. You don't want to have someone walk over with the written RO. You don't want to have an email or phone call. Have it put into a step where everyone that needs to respond to that approval will be alerted and can jump in and give their yeses or nos or ask their questions. So you definitely want to have an approval step set up with the approving authority, which is usually someone on the used car team or someone on the sales team, and have them involved. When we're doing reviews, we love to see the different users from different departments. Otherwise, it could just turn into a journaling tool for that one department. You actually want to get sales, service, and then sub-departments like parts involved as well. Who's responsible? You want to have the people closest to the action responsible. If you have a reconditioning manager and that reconditioning manager is accountable for every step, you're losing a lot of time. You want that detailer to let you know when the car is done. You want the photographer themselves to get that notification. So you want to give the owner of the process the one that actually does it. Otherwise, you might have a situation where all the cars are complete and there's invoices on a desk, and not till that next morning when that person gets to their desk, now they're moving in Rapid Recon, and you've lost all that time. So invite your subordinates, invite the people that actually own the process to get into Rapid Recon and move the step to let you know when they're done, because that could be the difference of starting that afternoon instead of waiting to the next morning as a whole batch movement.
Can I jump in here?
Sure.
So, a lot of our clients, and we hear this quite a bit, look at Rapid Recon as a tracking tool. Tracking takes place behind the scenes. It happens after things happen. Rapid Recon, by nature, is actually a communication platform. So the communication and the people that are talking to each other are literally in front of the car. So when you set your system up correctly, where all the notifications are going off right, and you've got the people closest to the action moving that vehicle through the system, they're using Rapid Recon to tell the next person in succession that, hey, it's your responsibility now. I'll
Exactly.
turn it back over to you, Anthony.
So another best practice, work items. So we have a feature in Rapid Recon where you can create a digital estimate, and that estimate can then line by line be approved or declined by the approving authority. You can also use it as a to-do list. So if you wanted to make sure something was getting marked off done specific to that appraisal, excuse me, the estimate, you can have that and you can track that. It also allows for you to keep a running total of what needs to be done on the car. So too often we've seen customers turn in estimates for $800, and then the approving authorities no, make it 600. And so now they're scrambling and trying to rework and figure out how to make that work. Well, instead, use the work items. Now you can have a line by line estimation, and you can decline certain things, and so that approving authority can actually make their own ticket. Great for accountability too, because service can always say that it was recommended but declined, and sales will have a record of how much was originally quoted. So if there's a change order or any type of heat afterwards, you can always go back to that. And soon we're even going to evolve that into a new feature, vendor advantage, that you'll find out about soon, where you can actually have the vendor involved with that as well. But those work items can be really, really helpful, especially when you're using that feature as a to-do list, because we have the ability to create a report for you to see every open item on your inventory. Let's say you want to see every car that needs a brake job or every car that needs tire. Well, because you're using that work item feature, now you can pull that up. Or maybe you have a junior technician and all they can do are oil changes. Couple clicks, now you have a list, a to-do list for them on which cars need oil changes, which cars got done. Also great for figuring out how much work is being declined or approved. because we can show that to you and filter that as well. So if you haven't been exposed to work items, please contact us. We'd love to show you how that all works. That's part of your subscription, but it really does help for getting the approvals faster and keeping both departments accountable. Engage in the parts department. So the dealerships that we see in successfully reducing their time to line at ADR, they are including their parts department. Make that a step. Let it go through them. Especially if you're using work items, the parts department themselves can actually enter in the pricing of parts. And that way, all the technician or service has to do is put in the hours or the labor costs, and everything is calculated automatically. So it is essential that you include them. Otherwise, you're not eliminating that walking back and forth between the back counter and the bay or the office. If parts is getting notified at the same time, then they can act before you have to go back there and tell them. Example, used car manager says, yeah, go ahead and do it. He puts it into that step. Parts and service gets notified at the same time. Parts now doesn't need to wait for service because they'll go ahead and order the part because they got the notification as well. Also great to have them included in the note taking. We've seen a lot of ETAs for when wheels will be arriving or this or that, or maybe a good, better, best option. Hey, we can get this here today or that here tomorrow. Which would you like? So have them put that stuff in the notes, and that way it's there for 3 years after the car is sold for record keeping, but it's there to be notified for all the different departments to be on the same page. So absolutely see if you can get your parts department involved. Notify the team. Over notification is dangerous, kind of like the example I gave before. If the reconditioning manager is the sole owner of every step, what's the point? They're going to get numb to it. You don't want to constantly all day long get text messages or push alerts on when a step has been completed because you won't take action on it. Notifications really should be kept to something that's very time sensitive and changes custody, meaning you need an approval and you're waiting on it. So yes, notify the approving authority, the used car team. Or a photographer needs to be alerted to come take a picture. Yes, that's a notification. But certain things may not need it. So be selective on who gets notifications and how often.
And one comment there, we've got some stores that when the vehicle arrives at front line, they notify their sales team, so they know when that vehicle's ready. So when that thing's hot off the press.
And back to that, kind of like we were talking about with parts. If you don't forget, you can notify multiple parties. So just like with the sales team, I would, when a car hits front line, I would actually notify the porters. So your lot porters are alerted every time a car is finished, and they know to go back to service, grab it, and park it up front.
Okay. I'll jump in here. We're going to look at a little bit deeper into parts and technician productivity. Now, keep in mind that technicians only stop for 2 reasons: parts and information. So we're going to talk about both of those things here today. Rapid Recon is clearly the engine for the information. Make sure the information's out in front of it, but make sure that you're engaging your parts department in here. And Anthony touched on this previously, but parts should be part of your Rapid Recon workflow as a best practice. If you're using work items in Rapid Recon, or if you're using simply just the notes there, get an estimate drawn up in Rapid. Get it sent through to your parts department so that not only is the communication going through Rapid, but the accountability is there as well. It's real difficult to hold a technician accountable if the excuse is always, well, I'm waiting on parts. So eliminate the excuse, put the accountability where it needs to be, and get the parts department involved. And another best practice here, the parts department may go through and do a price and availability, then they'll bounce it back to the tech in Rapid Recon. When we have to order parts, we can drop that into a step there. If the vehicle goes on parts hold, and let's talk about that for just a second. I see this all the time. The technician orders parts, all the parts arrive except the right hand wiper blade, and the tech wants to put the vehicle back on parts hold. Let's get real. If we can put brake pads and tires and a radiator, everything else in the car, is it really on parts hold? No. But once you've exhausted all the parts that you can install on that car, and if that vehicle is not movable, let's say the radiator is out and you can't push it down to detail, then it goes on parts hold. If we're really waiting for one wiper blade, let's make a note of that in the work items, get the vehicle completed, get it over to detail, or whatever the next step is, and we can grab that wiper blade later. Let's jump out here. And then, one of the other best practice here is when the parts arrive, the parts counterman can then jump into Rapid Recon, grab that vehicle, and flip it back to the technician. So the accountability is there, the communication is there, and it helps things run a lot tighter rather than a parts counterman running around trying to find a technician. More importantly, the technician standing at the rear parts counter going, "Are my parts here yet? Are my parts here yet?" So a real quick recon hack. So this is a practice. I've seen this in multiple stores. It works fantastic if you do this. So if you have an essential part that is located that you replace on every single vehicle, the stores that I'm thinking of do like wiper blades, in-cabin air filter, engine bay air filter, and oil change. If I haven't mentioned that, when the vehicle gets dropped into service write-up, they actually notify the parts counter at the same time. The counter person logs in, can see the repair order by the last date of the VIN, and goes ahead and bills and pre-pulls and pre-tags those parts. They put them in a small box, put them on the rear counter. So when that technician pulls that vehicle in, when they're doing their multi-point inspection, they go to the parts counter, they grab the box that's got the RO number on there, and they're literally installing parts while they're doing their MPI. They don't have to fill out a parts rack. We already know that that's going to get done. The time savings, those stores that are doing practices like that got to the point where they were 4-day stores, and that wasn't good enough. And they literally went, how are we going to get better than 4 days? And so they started literally cutting off minutes to save hours, to save days. So those are your stores that perform between 3 and 4 days that look at practices like this. All right, so productive staff scheduling. Let's jump in here. So just some ideas, some things that we've seen work out there. There's a dealership that we saw this work in. It worked out phenomenal, and we call it, the 3-day work week, the 4-day weekend. And what they do is they actually run one shift Monday through Wednesday, and the shifts are 13 hours, and then they'd run another shift from Thursday through Saturday. Now, this works out really great. In most cases, you might need to be on a team environment in order to make this work. If not, as long as you're really disciplined in your dispatching. And what I mean by that is, if it's Wednesday afternoon at 3 o'clock and you've got a vehicle that's ready to go into reconditioning and it's got 80,000 miles on it, and you know it's going to need a bunch of work, don't put it in, because if you're not on a team plan, that technician that's going to get that vehicle on Wednesday is going to spend a few hours on it, and then they're going to push it outside, and you've just done yourself a disservice because that vehicle is going to sit until Monday. Whereas if you're Wednesday at 3 o'clock and you've got a late model vehicle, it's got 5,000 miles on it, it's going to need an oil change, and 5,000 miles, an oil change and a couple of things. That's the vehicle to get in at Wednesday at 3 p.m. So you got to be a little smart with it. It's not just, hey, here's the next car in line. Choosing the right vehicle for the right time of day is vital, and that applies anywhere. It doesn't have to just apply in this scenario. So Anthony will have a few more things to talk about on that here shortly. So let's jump into some lot porter stuff.
Yeah, I would also look into scheduling some of your staff based on the productivity of the day. So for lot porters, you definitely don't want to have an even split and shift like an AM and PM. You want to think about, well, when do you have the highest traffic on your lot? So you don't want to have lot porters running around and chaser cars and trying to move trucks from one area to the other, or do rotation and inventory during your peak hours where there's a lot of customer traffic. So you want to think about, when would you have, if you've got 4 porters, you probably want to have the bulk of them early morning or when the traffic is low, and then have 1 or 2 during the other time for ad hoc missions. Kind of the opposite for detailing. So for your detailers, if you have 8 detailers or 6 detailers and you have 3 AM and 3 PM, you might be missing out on some efficiency, because a lot of times there's not that much to do in a morning. The morning is usually reserved for maybe early deliveries, but most salespeople deliver cars in the afternoon, and most technicians are finishing their work in the afternoon. And if you're trying to get over a bottleneck and you want to react as soon as it's ready, you would have the bulk of your detailers in the afternoon. And that way, as the cars are coming off the rack or as they're coming from finance ready for delivery, you have the majority of your detailers ready there. So I would definitely look at that, because if you're splitting it up, you're always going to have a backlog in the afternoon and underworked detailers in the morning. Variable detailing. So this is something that really helps in the efficiency and organization of detailing, and not just the act of detailing, but also the estimation of it as well. So what you want to do is you want to create stages. It really works well if your detailers are also flat rate, and that's a whole nother best practice conversation that we can have. But if your detailers are flat rate, just like they would be for technicians, then you can assign a stage to an hour. Every stage can be triaged. Every vehicle can be triaged. So if I'm seeing a minivan that just had that family life and got run down, that could be a 6-hour car, maybe a stage 3 on the inside, stage 3 on the outside. Each stage reflecting an hour of work and certain activities that need to be done: steaming, stain removal, outside possible wet sand buff, headlight restoration on your higher stuff. Maybe you got a car from the auction that's already pristine. That would be a stage 1. So by having these stages, you're able to do a couple things. Number one, every detailer understands what's expected of them. Okay, so there isn't carte blanche to just do whatever they think needs to be done. You've actually provided an order for them. They know what tools need to be applied. So if it's a stage 3, I know I'm going to be removing stains. If it's stage 1, I don't need that part on my cart, kind of thing. So they can set up better for the job. It also helps if you charge for that. So you might, if you have a flat rate, maybe you can go to this, and now service charges 6 hours for one car, 1 hour for the other. You have your wins and your loss, but at least everything is charged accordingly. It's also going to help you with the time to get cars through. If detailers or the detail dispatcher can see what's in a car, what stage it's in, the complexity of it, that could be the difference of a car getting squeezing in at the end of the day. If it's 3 p.m. and that detailer leaves at 6, and all they see are cars on the lot, they might think, okay, I don't have enough for work. But now that dispatcher's going through, like, hey, I found a stage 1-1, a purchase unit, should be real fast to do, knock this out. Well, that car just got in ahead of its time, and now you've eliminated one more in the queue. So a lot of benefits to this, but it also finally helps with training. Everybody is on the same sheet always. A stage 2 requires buffing, and a stage 3 requires this. So when you're training new hires, by training by those stages and the variable detailing, you're actually making sure everyone's in sync and you're reducing variation. One thing to help with that is a cosmetic inspection form. So to be much like when you're renting a car, if they have the information when as walking around the car, and we'll get to in a moment who should be filling this out, but if you see that there's a dent on the door, or if it needs headlight restoration or needs a certain type of wet sanding, to have that on that form for them to do and refer to makes it a lot easier as well.
I've been trying to get you to this next slide for a minute. Sorry, I keep bouncing back and forth.
No, I keep bringing you back. All right.
All right, so let's talk.
No, go ahead.
You want me to take this? Or you want to take it?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about cross-training employees. Now, make sure that your technicians are using all of their skill sets. Here's a really powerful statement. Just because it was part of your job in January doesn't mean it can't be today. Just because it wasn't part of your job in January doesn't mean it can't be today. With minimal training, as an example, a PDI tech capable to perform and should be able to be paid for PDI clean. Especially, if you're flat rate, we get in the habit of PDIing a vehicle, we shove it outside, it goes over to the detail department and they wash it up. If we're struggling for hours right now and looking for ways to keep technicians busy, don't be too proud to wash a car. So, it's especially if the dealership's going to pay that out either way, let's keep our flat rate techs busy, especially if you're in a situation where you may have furloughed some people, detailers, things like that it might be hourly. Better way to keep people paid is to do some work that maybe we don't want to do every single day, but it's required to keep us busy and keep us paid. Another best practice here, when you're doing your multi-point inspection on your vehicle, include a cosmetic inspection. I don't see this enough in stores, and what happens is the decision maker on that vehicle doesn't have all the information they need in order to make an educated decision. And so in a lot of service departments, the mindset might be, well, if I tell them it's got all this cosmetic damage, then I'm not going to sell as much mechanical work. But I've seen it firsthand where if the used car manager doesn't know what they're getting into, in the back of their head, they're reserving something for every car. And I've actually seen them lighten up on their mechanical spend because they don't know what's going on with everything. You know, it's reasonable to add a tenth or two to the price of your multi-point inspection to pay your technician a little bit more money. And it doesn't take a whole lot of training to identify a bumper scuff or you know, cigarette burns in a seat, but some things that the used car manager should know. So when you're doing your multi-point inspection, give them enough information so they're not surprised.
Anthony, and also on the other side of it, you're going to save time as well. Your bookers will save time if you're flagging hours and paying invoices for cosmetics. To do that all at once is going to save your office time as well. So not only is the approving authority going to see everything at once to get a clear picture of what's going to be charged to the vehicle, but when all the work is done, it's all paid for at once rather than splitting it up in technical versus cosmetic.
Yep. And speaking of cosmetic, let's talk a little bit about internalizing some of your sublet. You know, I hear a lot of stores say, well, you know, that's just not a skill set that we have. But a lot of these cosmetic items, and I speaking from personal experience, can definitely be done in-house. You know, your detailers are probably capable of handling headlight restoration. They just need proper training to do it. So don't be afraid to get your employees out of their comfort zone. Like I said here in the slide, the difference may mean their employment, especially today. So I'm going to jump into some cosmetic reconditioning best practices here. Now, I ran a collision center. I had the you know, the ability to do full paint jobs. We had paint booths. Not every store has that. In fact, 10% of all franchise dealers have a body shop that's attached to that franchise, so it's really low. So I may not go into things like you know, bumper repair or actually things that need paint work, but let's talk about some things that you can actually do in the store today with the technicians and the detailers that you have. So think about this. Rock chip repair. A really good rock chip repair kit, you can buy it on Amazon right now for 300 bucks. You can buy that same kit with enough supplies to do, you know, 300 vehicles for 500 bucks. Now, a technician will spend 3 times that on a scanner. And you know, you can internalize that, keep the money in-house so you're not paying an outside vendor to come around and do that, get that tech paid. And you know, that's something, a rock chip curing, they can drill the hole, fill the resin, put the light on it, and it, you know, runs on a battery out of the cigarette lighter, throw the vehicle on a hoist, and that can cure while we're changing the oil. So, you know, that's something that we can do in the oil change bay. Stereo and HVAC knobs, you know, we hire that out to interior repair people. Do yourself a favor, jump on Amazon, jump on eBay. Look, you can buy these decal kits that go over those. So when you've got these late model vehicles and they're just worn right off, you can do those in-house. Headlight restoration is another one. 3M makes a fantastic kit that comes with everything you need to sand and spray that. You can spray anything less than 3 ounces, at least out here in Utah, without a paint booth. So you can actually do a full headlight restoration there. And we're getting kind of close on time. I promise we're wrapping up. But some things that detailers can do, I mean, maybe even technicians as well, you guys can decide. But you know, not just cleaning vehicles. Have them, you know, learn how to restore paint by buffing, acid baths to get rid of those nasty rust spots. Headlight restoration, like we mentioned earlier, 3M's got some good kits there. Water spot removal with, you know, that acid bath will help with that as well. Cladding restoration. There's a company out there called Armadillo, and they made a product that General Motors adopted back when they had those avalanches that had all that cladding that would just turn like light gray when it was supposed to be black. There's a restoration pad that costs about $3 that'll clean up all of that faded cladding and really make those vehicles look nice. But that's something we're paying outside vendors to come in and handle for us right now. So that's something you could bring in-house. The blackout operation, you know, the trailer hitches that are rusting, windshield wiper blades that can be easily popped off and painted, that can really change the appearance of a vehicle, you know, that might pay you a few tenths. You could certainly handle that in-house. Odor removal is a huge one. You can buy a very nice ozone machine for somewhere between $800 to $1,200. The companies that are coming around to do odor removal at that level, at least, you know, when I was in the business, we're charging upwards of, you know, $90 to $120 to do that. Internalize that, train your staff on how to use it. When you buy those products, a lot of those the training comes with it. But these are all areas where bring some of those things that you're subletting in-house. We love the vendors, but it's our team that matters today. And this is areas of opportunity where we're already spending that money. We're not looking at increasing the expense to the sales department. So let's use the same money we're already spending, but retain more of it.
And not just for restoration and repair, but also for add-ons. I came from a group that had internal bed liner spray and window tinting, and that can be applied obviously to new vehicles as well, your new inventory. The same philosophy, just get a couple of your technicians, detailers, whoever trained up on it, and now you can internalize that as well. Great for the customers too, rather than having to wait on a Tuesday when the tint guy shows up, knowing that your employees can do it. They can actually make that part of the delivery process. So everybody wins.
So I'm going to jump in here and give a plug to the Dean King. Now, we have no affiliation with this company whatsoever. This is a company that I personally used. I took a technician and sent him out to California and actually had him trained on how to do PDR, touch-up, windshield chip repair, interior repair. My investment, including tools, was about 10 grand. With wages for the amount of time that he was out there in hotel stay, I was about 12,500, which was extremely affordable to get somebody trained up. The Dean King, they offered me a retrain guarantee. I looked at, I think, 6 different companies to get him trained. This was the only company that actually had a retrain guarantee. And I know what's going on in a lot of your fixed operation manager's mind is, well, I'm just going to get this guy all trained up and then he's going to go off and do his own thing. Maybe, but the Dean King's got a retrain guarantee. My guy, he worked for me for 4 years after we got him trained up, and he actually retired and went to do something, privately, not doing the same skill set. And I called Mike over there at the Dean King, and I got another technician in there. I was responsible, I think, for airfare and hotel, but they took care of all the training. And it just did a wonderful job. And Dean King's not a sponsor of Rapid Recon. We're not paid to put their name up here. I'm just showing you them because I had an excellent experience, and I know they'll do you a good job. So we're wrapping up here. If you want some more information, like on Anthony's detail program, where you saw all the different stages of detail, there's a lot more that goes into that. Feel free to reach out. Stephanie McLaughlin has been assigned as the account management for this webinar. If you want to reach out to her at stephanie@rapidrecon.com or give her a call here, and she'll set up an appointment with another one of our performance managers. They can go into those processes very deep, get you copies of those forms that you saw here. There's some other Word documents that go along with that really detail out the different stages of that variable detailing. The cosmetic reconditioning stuff that I just showed you, we can get you copies of those as well. Or if you just want somebody to dig into your system and say, where can you help me find some efficiencies? We're here for you to do that. And if you can see, we say at Rapid Recon that we know your business because we've lived it. That's not just a tagline. I mean, it's really our history. We've got people from all walks of life at the dealership, from sales to reconditioning to F&I, parts, collision. So, whatever your opportunity might be, we've got somebody here that's literally lived that side of the business that's happy to help you out. So thank you everybody for joining us today. We're gonna pick another one of these back up next Wednesday. We'll continue with a few more fixed ops things, and we'll bring variable in a little bit and hold them accountable as well. So again, thanks so much for your business, and we'll hope to hear from you soon.
Take care, everyone.